Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to episode 1 of the DC Universe Annotated podcast. Now on this episode, we'll go over the drama of Ray Fisher and WB, which is very interesting. Then the DC Universe relaunch details, including the HBO Max show renewals, new details on the Suicide Squad film directed by James Gunn, and last but not least, talk about the Batman resuming production in London. Now, if you're listening on YouTube, the first 3 segments are uploaded at 4 p.m., 6 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Time, respectively, every Monday. So if you'd like to hear the full audio version, not broken up into segments, including the bonus 4th segment, follow the podcast on either Spotify or SoundCloud. Link should be in the video description, or just search DC Universe Annotated on either Spotify or SoundCloud respectively. It should easily appear, and those versions are published at noon Eastern Time, same day. And by same day, I mean Monday. So with all that said and done, let's get into the first topic here, which is Ray Fisher versus Warner Brothers and Geoff Johns. So I'm going to basically recap this whole situation, if you will, if you want to call it that. More or less, I'm going to start off as much as I can from the beginning of things, all the way into the things that are most current, more or less, as of this past week. First and foremost, Ray Fisher says, there are some shenanigans going on set of Justice League once Joss Whedon took over directorial duties from Zack Snyder. And following these accusations of on-set misconduct, which still to this day, they haven't blatantly said what it was, there's just been this brewing war between Ray Fisher and Geoff Johns, John Berg, Joss Whedon, and more or less any exec at Warner Bros., including president of DC Films, Walter Hamada. Now, things got really nasty when Ray Fisher called out Walter Hamada, saying, after speaking out about Justice League, I received a call from the president of DC Films where he attempted to throw Joss Whedon and John Berg under the bus in hopes that I would relent on Geoff Johns. And, after that, Ray Fisher kept preaching about accountability over entertainment, etc., etc. Warner Brothers responded with a very lengthy statement, and I'm going to read it. I quote the following. In July, Ray Fisher's representatives asked DC Films president Walter Hamada to talk to Mr. Fisher about his concerns during the production of Justice League. The two had previously spoken when Mr. Hamada asked him to reprise his role as Cyborg in Warner Bros.' upcoming Flash movie, together with other members of the Justice League, which makes sense because they're going to do Flashpoint. So I guess it would make sense they want everyone in the Flash movie so they can neatly tie that bow and probably reset the canon, as theorized by a lot of places. But in their July conversation, Mr. Fisher recounted disagreements he had with the film's creative team regarding his portrayal of Cyborg, and complained that his suggested script revisions were not adopted. Mr. Hamada explained that creative differences are a normal part of the production process, and that a film's writer/director ultimately has to be in charge of these matters. Notably, Mr. Hamada also told Mr. Fisher that he would elevate his concerns to Warner Media so they could conduct an investigation. At no time did Mr. Hamada ever, quote-unquote, throw anyone under the bus, as Mr. Fisher has falsely claimed, or render any judgments about Justice League or about the Justice League production in which Mr. Hamada had no involvement with, since filming occurred before he was elevated to his current position. While Mr. Fisher never alleged any actual misconduct against him, Warner Media nonetheless initiated an investigation into the concerns he's raised about his character's portrayal. Still not satisfied, Mr. Fisher insisted that Warner Media hire an independent third-party investigator. This investigator has attempted multiple times to meet with Mr. Fisher to discuss his concerns, but to date, Mr. Fisher has declined to speak to the investigator. Warner Bros. Remains committed to accountability and to the well-being of every cast and crew member on each of its productions. It also remains committed to investigating any specific incredible allegation of misconduct, which thus far Mr. Fisher has failed to provide. That was really like the first kind of whoa moment, I guess you would say. After that, Ray Fisher responded to it, saying that they've escalated, they being WB, have escalated this to an entirely different level. He also says that Whedon's on-set treatment of the cast and crew of Justice League was gross, abusive, unprofessional, and completely unacceptable. Later accusing Geoff Johns and John Berg of enabling this behavior, which I just gotta say, off the narrative path really quick, that this is kind of not ironic, but just I can't help but laugh a little bit. Out of all the actors to bring something like this forward, it's Ray Fisher, who plays Cyborg, against Geoff Johns, who is the one that introduced Cyborg as a member of the Justice League when they did New 52. I mean, I just think it's kind of ironic in a way that Geoff Johns has kind of unintentionally created this whole situation for himself by introducing Cyborg as a Justice League member. But anyways, Ray Fisher goes on to talk about how he's having issues talking with Warner Brothers Pictures because instead of Warner Media, an investigator on the case, the investigator was actually hired by Warner Bros. Pictures. So anything brought up would go directly to them instead of Warner Media. Basically, that was a whole issue, and Ray Fisher is trying to protect himself by making sure when he's talking to whether it's Warner Bros. Pictures or this investigator that he has another person on his team on the line because, a lot of times, I guess, Warner Bros. Pictures, he was saying they would have someone on their end on the line, but not tell Ray Fisher necessarily. As he puts it, he also had another person on the line as a witness, which we weren't made aware of. I told him I needed to have a rep on the line as security for myself. And then they tried keeping him on the line, but he said basically that this wouldn't work and he needs to talk to his team. So this just keeps going and going and going. Ray Fisher says as well that this whole thing is a sad and desperate game by the studio, and that he has a lot of receipts about interactions they've had. While it's a sad and desperate game, it's a predictable one. Walter Hamada's excuse for the whole situation with Geoff Johns, at least, is saying that he worked with Geoff Johns on the Shazam movie, doesn't really think Geoff Johns would do or say the things that Ray Fisher is saying. But Ray Fisher says, you weren't there when Geoff Johns used back-channel communication to call me into his office, make a veiled threat to my career, or basically when Geoff Johns contacted Fisher in 2018, a year and a half after Justice League, while Fisher was shooting True Detective, to essentially gloat that there was another Cyborg being used in the DC Universe in a show that Geoff Johns was producing. So, I mean, a lot of this sounds really petty, to be honest, from both sides. Honestly, if Geoff Johns did that, I mean, come on, that's really petty. But since then, Kiersey Clemons, who plays Iris West in Justice League and presumably also in the upcoming Flash movie, alongside of Jason Momoa, who plays Aquaman, they both posted to their Instagrams respectively stating support for Ray Fisher and his side of events. According to both Jason Momoa and Ray Fisher, used a fake Frosty the Snowman announcement and also leaked Ben Affleck's return as Batman to distract fan attention from what's going on. Now, also at the same time, there was a conveniently released article that basically said Ray Fisher only started this whole, allegation stuff after being offered a small cameo role as the Flash in the not as the Flash, but as Cyborg in the Flash movie, which they say from that point, one thing, led to another. And all of a sudden, after the studio did not hear back from Fisher's team since offering the role, these allegations came out. Even though it doesn't really make sense, it's not like it would make what Ray Fisher said any less valid, just because what he's saying is things happened on the set of Justice League, not anything abstract, like, regarding this role. Ray Fisher responded saying, due to the purposeful lack of transparency and lies on the part of WB Pictures and a third-party firm hired by them to investigate Justice League, an official request for a change of investigator has been made to Warner Media so as to protect the witnesses involved and the information they possess. I strongly encourage any and all that have been contacted by the current investigator to respectfully decline to interview until a truly independent third party is engaged by Warner Media. And that is the last of the last updates. I think it's safe to say that I don't expect to see Ray Fisher in any WB or Geoff Johns produced projects coming up soon. And again, like I said before, I just think it's kind of ironic that Geoff Johns is having this, not him alone, but he is a part of what is being, I guess, called out for these, allegations, if you will, of things we don't fully know yet, but I guess just terrible stuff that happened on set. I mean, I think it's interesting that this is happening from the actor playing the character of Cyborg that is only in Justice League, because Geoff Johns wrote Cyborg as a founding member in the New 52 for Justice League. I mean, I just can't get over it's like George Lucas, you know what I mean? Like poetry, like it rhymes, you know what I mean? Like it's just everything coming full circle here, at least for Geoff Johns. Now, I understand some of what Ray Fisher is saying in terms of, you know, things being changed up. And if you go back to the earlier things being said, you know, he talks about how a lot of his suggestions for the character were basically ignored. And I can see the frustration he's coming from there, because he has said multiple times that when Zack Snyder brought him on to play Cyborg, part of what also happened was that Zack Snyder brought him kind of, as you would say, like a seat to the table in terms of really outlining and defining what Cyborg's character in Justice League and in the DC Extended Universe would be like, in terms of, you know, what is his relationship with his father, his mother, you know, what are his motivations, what is his character arc going to be like. But these are all things Ray Fisher on the record has said before was something he worked on with Zack Snyder. So I can see why he would feel slighted when, after presumably all that research and hard work to create this character, new director comes in, new producer comes in, all of a sudden, you know, they just dismiss everything. I mean, I can understand that. At the same time, I can understand somewhat, you know, Joss Whedon's perspective on things and Geoff Johns' perspective on things, potentially, in terms of, you know, you're under a tight studio mandate. Millions of dollars are in this project. Hundreds of millions of dollars are on the line. Jobs are probably on the line, including yours, if this is a huge bomb. You got to do what the studio says. Whether that makes the actors happy or not, at the end of the day, even though you can say it's up to the writers and you can say it's up to the producers and up to the directors, it's really up to those who have the money, which are the execs. And that is a never-ending battle between the creatives and the executives for film productions. I know Christopher Nolan has said that he considers it just a part of the process, that tension, but I can understand why that would be something that is a foundational element of Ray Fisher's issue with WB. However, at a certain point, I mean, I'm guessing maybe it's due to NDAs. Maybe due to NDAs, but you gotta speak out, man. You gotta say what actually is going on here. I mean, if it's to the point where Kirstie Clemons and Jason Momoa are talking about it, I mean, come on. Henry Cavill, Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, I mean, speak up. Supposedly, Gal Gadot was so unhappy with some of the reshooting things that Joss Whedon was ordering that they had her stunt double do it. And then they just CGI'd Gal Gadot's face basically onto those scenes. Like, I think the scene of basically the Flash falling on Wonder Woman, and it's supposed to be like a physical comedy moment with a sexual innuendo or something like that. Gal Gadot was not a part of that whatsoever. They had her stunt double do it. Supposedly that's why a lot of the reshot scenes, I should say, with Gal Gadot, it features like over the shoulder, you know, from behind kind of stuff. So you don't really tell that it's not Gal Gadot. Can't tell basically who it is, whether it's her or stunt double. So reportedly, that is the history behind that. So if it's really that bad, just speak out at this point. I mean, now more than ever, we're in an era of the entertainers being empowered more so than the studios with social media and everything else. So if something truly bad was happening behind the scenes, no one's going to crucify you for saying it. The execs might try making you not have a job, but I mean, if you're Ben Affleck and you're Gal Gadot, they can only keep you from being in a film for so long because you're already an international star. Ray Fisher is kind of a different situation because he's obviously not at the same level of a Ben Affleck or a Gal Gadot or a Henry Cavill, but I'm sure at the same time, this is one of those moments where you need your bigger cast members to really join your side. That's really kind of my thoughts on that. I hope they get this resolved soon because it's never nice when things like this, you know, when things are ugly and they're brought to light. So I hope they can get things fixed up sooner rather than later. And yeah, that's really it for this topic. All right. Yeah. So that's kind of it for this episode. Thanks for watching or listening, I guess, potentially, depending on what platform you're on right now, of the DC Universe Annotated podcast. Again, if you're listening on YouTube, the first 3 segments are uploaded at 4, 6, and 8 p.m. Eastern Time every Monday. However, if you're wanting to hear just the full audio version with the bonus 4th segment, not split up into different video segments, just listen to the podcast, follow it on Spotify and SoundCloud. Links are in the description, or just search DC Universe Annotated on Spotify or SoundCloud respectively. And those versions publish at noon, Eastern Time, same day / Monday. So check it out. Let me know what you guys think about this episode down below in the comments, and I'll show you guys later.